welcome Nicole Brewster to this Invercio catch-up.
Catch up because Nicole just released, or at least released a few days ago, some actually, I'd say important, but as well super interesting news on Surimo. And I wanted to, have a little discussion with Nicole today so that she could break it down with some of our viewers that aren't so familiar with all these technical results.
And people like me that are not so familiar with those results.
Yeah.
For me, like 3.45, 46, it's a very low percentile, but I don't know much.
It's an exceptionally high nickel grade, actually.
There you go.
So we released the results for the 1,200, if memory serves, meters we drilled right before Christmas in 7 drill holes. Those drill holes were located in the area of Victoria West, where we did some stripping in the fall. If you recall, we stripped between 2 sets of drill holes. So we stripped 275 meters, and then we did 7 drill holes, 2 groups of 3, one in the east end of the stripped area, one in the west end, and then in the middle, we did a hole on its own. Those results, the samples went to the lab early January. We just got the results back the other day. So they were interesting. Collectively, as we get a little bit deeper and we're targeting our drilling a bit, we see the nickel grade is coming up. We're into the 0.2 realm, which is a very interesting and most likely viable range of nickel grade. If we look to Dumont to the north, we're within spitting distance of Dumont's grades, and we're getting close to the grades of Canada nickel as well. But the real interesting thing that came out of that drilling in December was we did get 1.5 meters of 3.46% nickel, which is exceptionally high. Tells you that there was pentlandite in the sample. And it's interesting to see that we can see grades that high. So it changes the complexion of Victoria West a little bit. We're open to the fact that we may have a higher overall grade than we see right now. In total, we've only drilled 5,600 meters over 2.2 kilometers within a 6-kilometer structure that we expect probably extends to 20 kilometers. So we have work to do, but it's just getting more interesting seeing that little bit of high grade as well as some other higher grades within the averages, because we got pretty decent widths as well. So it just makes things look a little different at Victoria West at Surimo.
And if we use a comparable, because understanding maybe using another company that is not necessarily in Canada or so that's seeing the same type of like how can I say, like the same complexity of the results. Like I know that I think there's a company in Australia that has, there's mentions of the same type of sample. Like
story.
I'm not a geologist.
So, it's investors, shareholders, people, we like to be able to draw comparisons.
Mhm.
And it's hard to talk to people about something in a vacuum if you can't make it, see in your head where it might be like something else. So what might we be like?
Mhm.
Well, we use the model of the Outokumpu district in eastern Finland, but that's pretty darn academic and abstract. So we'll park that for now. In terms of things we can look around and see in today's media or perhaps understand, I gave you 2 comparisons. One is the Dumont deposit north of us it's just to the west of Amos, Quebec.
Okay.
Dumont's very interesting, and we look like we maybe have some similarities, but Dumont's hard to make a comparison to because it was taken private by Waterton for in excess of $250 million. So it doesn't help us much because it's private now. Canada Nickel, they're in Ontario. Grades we're getting within spitting distance of those grades again. The difference being we also have at Victoria West, we've only talked about nickel. but we also have cobalt, copper, zinc, platinum, palladium, and silver. So we're what we call a sulfide nickel polymetallic.
Oh, wow.
So nickel is definitely the focus, but the polymetallic, all those other metals, would come into play at processing. They'd have some sort of economic value. So we don't have the full picture yet, but it also means that our value proposition is different in that our go, no-go decisions are not based on nickel alone. We've got all these other commodities happening. We kind of have everything you need for this battery revolution that's going on. Now, Australia, you're talking about a property called Julimar, which Chalice Gold has in Australia. It's a discovery they made. They as they learned more about that, it became evident that it's actually quite rich in platinum and palladium. Those commodities are so expensive that quite rich is still very low numbers, but yes, it's a polymetallic, it's a sulfide nickel polymetallic, but they've got a good chunk of platinum and palladium as well. So they're again still working on their deposit and learning what they've got, which is the same thing we're doing. So,
and I was because reading the press release, okay, I read it in French, but they were saying that well, you were saying because you wrote it.
me, because I wrote it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying
that you had like low concentrations, or the way the phrasing was, it didn't feel like it's a big deposit. Like
it's a
not
big
concentrated.
deposit of low grade.
Oh yeah, low grade, exactly.
Yeah, can you
So
explain that a little bit for us, just so that we
yes,
understand?
what's happening is, on this planet, we're getting to the point where all the easy stuff has been found in any commodity. Doesn't matter. The low-hanging fruit is gone. So what happens? Well, all the commodity prices are rising. And what you're seeing happen is, when Voisey's Bay was discovered, it was 1%, 2% nickel. Nickel wasn't as expensive. You needed 1 or 2% to make it economic. Well, now nickel's up, zinc's up, copper's up, gold's up, silver's up, everything's up, 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 up. And what happens when the commodity price goes up? The cutoff that's viable economically for the metal goes down. Now, the model of a large-scale low-grade nickel sulfide deposit is a real one. There are a few on the, around here in our planet being developed or defined. We are, again, not just nickel, so we changed that paradigm a little bit, but large-scale low-grade is not necessarily a bad thing if it works economically. There are so many variables. Each one is its own unique little situation, but heck, ours is sure interesting because we're in Quebec, so they like mining. We're right beside the Canadian Malartic mine. They understand mining. So mining's not new. Nobody lives at Surimo. Surimo is it's empty. It's crown land. So we don't have any people that we're trying to dig a hole under. We have road access. We have hydroelectric power lines for Rapid 7 and Rapid 2 crossing the property. 98% of the power in the province of Quebec is hydroelectric power. So it's green energy. And I believe Quebec still has the cheapest electricity prices in this country.
Yep.
So that affects our economics as well. So these are all little permutations or little considerations when it comes to Surimo. So low-grade nickel, I'm not going to come to it, but you can do an exercise. There's an old rule of thumb. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about Surimo, don't forget our metal's at surface. We haven't gone much deeper than 100 vertical meters. So we're not talking about underground mining. We're talking about a surface open pit. And with 6 kilometers or maybe 20 kilometers, we have enough distance and we have enough north-south space to actually be able to build that open pit. We have the footprint you need to build an open pit. So that's the last item. an interesting exercise. If you Google Casey rocks in the box or Kitco rocks in the box, it's a calculator where you put the grades of the metal in. And it gives you the commercial value based on the price the metal's trading at.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Great
So you
tool.
can do it. Now that calculator gives you gold, silver, copper, nickel. It gives you like a handful of commodities, and it uses the currently quoted prices. So it's not the most accurate, right? Nothing's ever sold on the currently quoted price, it's et cetera, et cetera. But it gives you a look. It gives you an idea. It gives you a way to try and go, okay, what does 0.2 nickel mean if nickel is $14 a pound? You type in 0.2 nickel, you select percent rather than grams or any other measurement, and it tells you what that's worth. It's literally a calculator that gives you the value of the rock. That leads you to, used to be a rule of thumb, or what is a rule of thumb? For an open pit, I've been told it's $30 a ton is viable in terms of making money on an open pit basis. So you can go through the exercise of just figuring out what the rock's worth and, seeing when you hit that cutoff. So Casey rocks in the box, I think, is how you get there with Google.
Yeah,
There's also a, did you find it?
I'm going it right now. Casey rocks in the box.
Yeah, there's also Junior Mining Network put one together, but with theirs, you have to input the prices, I think. But there's like literally a handful, and there was a consulting group that had one that was a very cool spreadsheet, but I think they took it down. So, but rock value calculators is what you're looking at. Did you find it?
May have. Oh, you got it.
Yeah. So Matthias here has found it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just, you're pricing, ask Matthias to price in 0.2% nickel.
You're going to do it.
0.2% nickel. So base metal. 0.2.
Select percent.
Ton. Can I select percent? It says ounces ton. So yeah, percent. Perfect. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So 68.17 per ton.
Yeah. So $17 per ton, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's not a big number, but then you play with it, right? It's a calculator. Now the fun begins. You put 0.25, you put 0.19, you play around.
So about,
and you can play with other metals too. But these are numbers that are real. They work. There's a fellow who he writes some research I subscribe to, but he does a public blog as well. It's Battery Materials Review.
I've seen some of the stuff. They're great. It's great, actually.
He's really good. I sponsored it. Renforth sponsored his podcast last month. But in November last year, he made public, or he wrote to his subscribers, but eventually became public and got picked up by Kitco, an article on low-grade, large tonnage, or large tonnage, low-grade nickel, sulfide nickel deposits, and how those will be the way of the future. So you can go back to his blog and look that article up as well. It's pretty interesting.
Well, like I was telling the other day, I think Paul Armand Girard, who works with you guys, it seems to be like an exciting time for metals right now. Commodity prices are up, but as well with everything that we're using, everything that we need for the future. I mean, it seems to be the right place to be right now, and especially when you have a project like Surimo, like what you mentioned. That has such it's big, and because you have all these lower grades, but as well some higher grades, and on top you have all those other metals in there, which are sort of gravy if you consider it. You have it seems to be a great story that's unfolding right now.
It's unfolding as we speak. I think it's a phenomenal story. I mean, Surimo, the property is 330 square kilometers, or just over that. 4.5 times, you could fit the island of Manhattan in Surimo 4.5 times, I think. 6 different areas of polymetallic mineralization. All were documented historically in some fashion. Even with just a drill hole or two, we verified the existence of the mineralization at each of those. The Horn smelter, which is Canada's only copper smelter, but it can do polymetallic. It's in Rouen-Noranda, so it's about an hour away. We won't be building more smelters. So, LaRonde, directly to the north of us, is a VMS deposit. They could do a flotation circuit and get all the metals out. There's lots of interesting things happening with Surimo. And Surimo, we're very much at the beginning of the story. It's hard for me even to present and talk to people because I don't want people to take what I'm saying as the definitive final word, because it's not. We've only drilled 5,600 meters. We'll be drilling again in May. Sometime. We just finished. We've just got our airborne. We'll be going through the targeting process with the airborne running. We've got a whole bunch of EM targets coincident with the mag targets. We'll run an inversion on the mag, try and plot drill holes. We'll be drilling. We'll be doing some prospecting. There's lithium on the property. We've never looked at it. We know it's there. We've got lithium numbers in the existing Victoria West drilling that we haven't looked at. So we got to put a bit of work into lithium, figure out what that story is. So when I talk to people, my story keeps changing, not because I'm changing it, because the property's changing. The property's evolving, it's growing, it's getting better each time I talk to people.
Can you actually explain to me something? So when I look at Renforth Reports and I look at other companies, you guys actually like to give the results for every hole that you drill. And why is that when you see other companies that only show you the good holes?
Because every hole we drill is hitting mineralization. That's simple. It's truly that simple. In all the hills we drilled at, well, what are we at? We're at, with Surimo, if you go through, you'll find there's one hole that we don't say anything. There's mineralization there of a very low grade, it doesn't meet the cutoff. At Parbec, every hole we drilled at Parbec, we got gold. So we tell people, I overshare. My view, and it's a way of thinking of exploration, we own the property. We have the rights to the property. It's on us to keep those rights in good standing. As long as we do that, nobody can take the property away from us. So I can tell people what's going on. There's a view that everything's got to be top secret. But to me, if I'm a shareholder, I don't want to be a shareholder in a top secret company. I want to at least understand there's something happening, even if I don't understand the minutia of the science. At least show the shareholders that we're drilling these holes, we're getting results. Now, we're also showing our potential suitors down the road, but that's okay too. Because it's like when you go in the store and you want to look at something, but you don't want to talk to anybody. You want to see that thing, you want to pick it up and look at it and think about it, but you don't want the salesperson on you, bugging you. So it's okay. Take a look. Here, you can look. The information's out there. And if you want to talk to me, then you can find me. So I overshare, but we also drill a bunch of good holes. Our geologists pick good holes. So.
But on top of you know what? And you touched on a good point. You say overshare, but as a shareholder, I mean, I'm loving seeing all these results. I'm loving getting all these updates. Now, let's say there's something I don't understand these reports. How easy is it for me to get in touch with you or somebody to
My name, phone number, and email is on every press release that goes out. And people do email me with questions. People who get my newsletters, they email me back with questions or comments, or they just want to share something. I have shareholders who email me all sorts of stuff. That's fine. Email's best, because I can respond to it when I can respond to it. But I mean, there's my email, my phone number on every press release. We do LinkedIn, both Renforth and myself personally. Renforth has a Facebook page and it has a Renforth shareholders private Facebook group. The only reason for the private group is that's how I can post documents. I can post a press release to a group, whereas I can't on a public page. We have a Discord channel.
Oh, nice.
You can enter the Discord channel. We have a Instagram account. There was something else I keep forgetting. Oh, we have Twitter. There was a new one I keep forgetting I have, so I have to pay attention to it and do something with it. But
On
anyway,
TikTok, Nicole,
pardon me?
are you on TikTok?
We do. That's it. I got a TikTok. I knew there was one. My kids think it's hilarious, but yes, we have a TikTok. There's one video on it. So,
But I
but
mean,
yeah,
why
there's
not?
only one. There's ample ways to get a hold of us. There's ample ways to get answers to questions. And if I don't know the answer, I can get the answer.
But
So
that's one thing about dealing with small companies like yours, is that you can talk with the person, the owner, the CEO. You have direct access, and that's why I always think that it's very important for people that are interested in learning to invest. Well, you can't really talk to Elon. You can't really talk to Tim Cook, if he's still at Apple, because I follow Apple apparently. you know, you can't talk to these people. So, and most of the time you can't really afford their shares.
well, there's that. There's leverage and share price, but it's also a mindset. Like I'm a big shareholder. I just have the benefit of a hell of a lot more knowledge than the average shareholder. But we're all shareholders. We're kind of all in this together, and I need everybody to stay on the team and stay invested with the team and engage with the team. And if I can clarify something that helps, then I'm happy to do it.
That's great.
You
That's exactly what we're looking for companies, especially when you're, because also I think something that we've touched base on before, but investors, when they're investing in a smaller company, especially when it's a commodities play, it's a long-term play. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at, you mentioned it, the prices of the metals 20 years, 10 years ago aren't the same what they are today. So it's a long-term play. And when you're investing in a company like yours, that's making these discoveries, that's the story's changing all the time. I mean, you can't expect results tomorrow, but
It's a
long-term.
funny thing. There's no aha moment. Like I tell people, Surimo was a discovery hiding in plain sight. You've seen me say that because it was historically documented. At the time, Lac Minerals was in the 80s looking for gold. They got copper, nickel, zinc. They didn't care. They walked away. Canadian Nickel Company did some work, I believe in the 60s. Grades weren't high enough in the 60s, as we just discussed. The commodity price was different. We're in a world of declining commodities, growing population, and even more demands placed on the planet and the commodities we have. I don't foresee prices cratering. And in fact, they're calling for a generational commodity bull market, which is typically a 10-year cycle. So, the reality is changing day to day. Surimo, Victoria West, with discovery hiding in plain sight. There's no aha moment, but I did once was told, I was researching, and an overnight success is usually 5 years in the making. And that's from the marketing digital world. That's not from the mining world. But that was talking about people that become an overnight success in the digital space. They've usually been doing what they're doing. They've been grinding for 5 years with nobody paying attention. But it develops. It takes that time. So, Surimo, Victoria West, is a discovery. But when is the aha moment? Well, if a bonanza hole is drilled, then there will definitely be a big aha moment. But 3.46, the widths we got, we got 100 and, I forget, it was that 3.46 was in like 170 meter interval, if memory serves. I forget the rest of the headline from the press release. Well, I'm being lazy. I'm seeing my computer. I can tell you the rest of the headline. But, it's layer by layer, piece by piece. We just keep, we keep building the base. And at some point, we'll wake up. It'll be a different day, and maybe Elon Musk will have noticed Surimo, right? And he'll send a tweet.
You should. You should send him the results. He'll probably understand them better. But this is great news, Nicole. And that's what
I doubt he'll understand him, but I do tag him on Twitter just for the hell of it.
Really?
Oh yeah, of course. Why not?
You never know if you don't take a shot.
You don't if you don't take a shot. Exactly. So it was 170.55 meter interval of 0.16. But it was a 12-meter interval of 0.54 that 3.46 was in. So that, large low grade, higher grade interval, and then crazy high grade. And yeah, you don't if you don't ask the question, you don't, guy I used many when I was much younger, used to work for. His analogy, which probably is not allowed in today's, workplace environment, was you won't get kissed if you don't go to the dance.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's a good one. That should be the title of your next press release.
I just got one more question because I like picking your brain because you're so
Because you never know what'll come out.
yeah, but also your knowledge scape is so immense. Like right now, what do you feel about a sort of a commodity and mostly natural resources protectionism, like almost going just on continental? Like I think what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, I think it's got
for sure.
people.
How much of the nickel? I don't even know the statistic. I gave a broker lunch today, and then an old friend broker associate came late, and we sat down and chatted for a while. And we were touching on Norilsk nickel and how much of the nickel market's just being taken off the table due to sanctions and an inability to trade with Russia. Norilsk is responsible for a good chunk of the nickel production. I mean, I'm thinking it's 15 to 20% of the worldwide nickel that's sold. But it's also geopolitics are shifting. There are new alliances being drawn. Like Russia's been, they can't use the SWIFT network, which is kind of American European. Yeah. Well, they're direct trading with China. They have a different money transfer, money settlement system with China that they can use. I forget which Southeast Asian country just bought a whole bunch of Russian oil that was afloat with no buyer. That'll land, so the world is shifting. And you saw Biden enact the War Measures Act with regard to critical and strategic minerals. And forgive me, I don't know the number, but I'm going to say the number of minerals he identified on that list was to the tune of like 2025. And there were some surprising ones on there, like zinc. We have a bunch of zinc at Surimo. Used to be if copper was $3 a pound, zinc was $1 a pound. That was kind of the relationship between the two. So nobody cared about zinc as a result. Well, we need zinc. We need zinc in the production of, it's an alloy. So we need zinc in our world. And in the US, there's three states where they come together. So northeastern United States, there is a zinc mine. It's operating. They get their zinc there. That's the only place the United States can get zinc is one mine. That mine was sitting idle for a hell of a long time. I believe Trafigura owns it now and has it running. But that mine won't last forever. Mines are finite creatures. They eventually run out. Once you mine it out, you mine it out. So Biden added zinc to this list of strategic minerals. The world got very flat for a while. Malcolm Gladwell and the flat earth and how we were trading across borders and between countries and currencies, and everything was just in time delivery, the Walmart model, right? Don't stock anything because you can get it if you need it. Same thing with commodities, but now you can't get it if you need it. You need a commodity that China owns. Do you think China's really in a rush to send it to the States? Russia owns, you can't buy it. Chile, well, the Chilean government's in the midst of nationalizing all the minerals there. So, what was it, Centerra in the Krieg Republic, they seized the asset. Like, the world is changing. A lot of countries want the value add benefit of their minerals. Indonesia did that. They did for a little while ago, about 2 years ago, stop the export of nickel because they wanted the value add. They wanted the work that employs the most people and generates the largest tax revenue to stay in the country, meaning the processing. Government of Quebec wants the same thing, by the way. Every government is cognizant of this. Government of Quebec does not want to just mine nickel, say mine Surimo, put it in a big boxcar and send it south. That's not what the government of Quebec wants. They want the upstream and the downstream employment, revenue, the tax revenue, employment benefit, industry in the province. So the world had been pretty flat. Then we saw Mr. Trump come in and change the rules. And one of the things Mr. Trump came in and did was he looked at the balance of trade for the US and he went back to an isolationist model where he pulled up the borders. He put the walls up.
Yep.
He said, you want to trade with us? Well, you got to do this for us. Or stop dumping your cheap shit in my country where I cannot make stuff in the country to compete with you. I'm going to put a tariff on you to try and give our, you're sending rubber ducks in that you make for next to nothing. So you're selling them at a penny each. It costs us 2 pennies to make them. So I'm going to put a 4-penny tariff on your rubber duck to try and give our homegrown guys the ability to make rubber ducks. He started that. And as a result, everybody looked around and went, wait a minute. Okay, I need to grab a bigger piece of the pie. I need a bigger piece of the value chain here. And things are not fluid around the world anymore. Prices are changing. And if it comes down to it, if you want to buy into, as I do, the fact that China is the ascendant world superpower, then they have a huge customer sitting beside them in India, both of whom are mobile classes, burgeoning populations, and classes, moving from poverty to low, moving up that chain, and both have infrastructure issues to deal with. China has to go back and build for real all the stuff they built hurry up fashion. And India, well, electrification in India is a totally different thing. How's the US going to compete with the customer on their doorstep? And if you paid any attention to the Belt and Road Initiative, where China owns most of Africa and all the ports now, they don't need to supply to the US. So the US has woken up and said, wait a minute, where are we going to get crap from? They're going to invoke the War Measures Act, but they're not going to build new mines or many new mines in the United States. They're looking north. Our government, do they perceive it? It's hard to say. We saw one asset, which was, the name escapes me, on Baffin Island. It was ultimately bought by Agnico, but first a Chinese company had been going to buy it. It's a gold deposit, gold mine. And they didn't want China having an asset in our Arctic waters because they are contested waters. So Agnico stepped in and bought it. Our government's sort of waking up to that fact, but it's not as transparent. Like, look at all these publicly traded companies that have rights to assets. Who owns the publicly traded companies? We know who owns Renforth. It's regular, it's Bob and Sue and Joe and Fred. It's not China or anything, but
a holding that the major shareholder is a holding that is offices are in BC and Shenzhen.
Exactly. But I mean, that's that is a reality that we have to be aware of going forward.
What about the bigger US companies like GM sort of waking up and building battery plants now in Quebec?
So there was British Volt has a deal to build a battery plant in Quebec. The auto manufacturers, I haven't been following as closely. On mining.com, there was just an article about how car manufacturers are going to have to become miners.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, there was a mine in, was it Labrador or something, that a battery manufacturer has done an agreement to get, it might be a car manufacturer, but if so, it's a European one, has done an agreement to be able to access the product of the mine. So I think what you're going to see is vertical integration. I don't know if it's going to be with the car manufacturers because it's really outside of their wheelhouse. But I feel like you'll see the battery manufacturers, the cathode manufacturers, that level, the people building the inputs to the cars, because they're all contracted independent companies, right, that build these pieces. GM does not build them. I think you'll see them become vertically integrated and need to do agreements where they can access the materials they need to build their batteries. And it's interesting because as much as battery chemistry changes and seems to be fairly fluid, the one thing they can't get away from is nickel. You need nickel, period, end of story.
Well, I think also, I think Elon tweeted about that like months ago, where I would say that's why you should be tagging him, because
No, I do.
if somebody's forward looking, it'll be that guy, and if Elon says I like that property, and that not only is that a game changer, but I mean that's your future set.
Yeah, but every Renforth shareholder who sees me tweet a press release can also retweet it and tag Elon. We're on the same team. We can work together.
That's true. That's true.
One of the things that I find that's like there is a little bit of a movement in the air to revitalize mining, at least publicly in Quebec. I don't know if you saw last week the news that Osisko is going into Murdochville, you know, and they haven't said they're reopening the mine, but they're going to do some tests because they
they bought that from Cisco Mining bought that from, I don't know, it was Kinross or Barrick or something. It was one of the big ones that had just had it kind of from the back pocket sitting there. Well, that's commodity prices for you.
But that's an example that people can realize, be like, oh yeah, well, you know, we're lucky in Canada, in Quebec, to have a lot of natural resources. And like you pointed out, everything that we have, everything around us comes from most natural resources.
Right.
And towns, jobs, like it's a very big part of our economy.
Canada is a natural resource economy, although many of our politicians really want to just talk about how we're a digital economy or whatever else, and mining is a dirty word, and forestry, lumber, cutting trees down is a dirty word. I mean, Quebec, New Brunswick, that's the lifeblood. There's lots of value add opportunities, but there's lots of towns, people, lives, generations, families that generations have been miners or forestry. Our water, huge amounts of our water, but unfortunately it's not taxed. Go figure. Then we give that away. We shouldn't be, because there's a shortage on the planet. That's a whole different rant. But we are a natural resources economy, and most of the natural resources jobs are, you know, they're dirty words, or people don't want to talk about them, or they don't understand them. And I was talking to somebody, a marketing professional, who said, like, mining is doing itself a disservice, because you look at, like, you know, the Canadian Dairy Association. In Quebec, when I drive along the highway near outside of Malartic towards Rouen, there's some sign, there's a big egg farmer, but he has a sign that is the Quebec Association of Egg Farmers.
Yep.
You know, like, they do their own PR. They get in front of people and they say, like, we're here and we're good, and this is why you should care that we're here. Mining, we do nothing. You know, so
maybe with these new laws and new protectionist vision of things, hopefully we'll see an uptrend on that.
I think we'll hear more about mining going forward. It's in the news. I mean, and then the invocation of the Defense Measures Act is no small thing in the United States, right? So, and our budget came down. I haven't heard what was in our budget. At 4:00, our federal budget was released. And I haven't heard what's in it, but I have a funny, I'm sure it'll speak to some extent to the resources. So we'll see.
They will probably spend on social programs. Oh, it's a
my computer's at 8%. We could kill my computer, right?
Well, on that, Nicole, thanks for the update.
Thank you for the update. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You know,
yeah,
you can go from Renford to the world.
We can go all over the
seconds. Map. And
I don't know if anybody listens to this, but we surely can cover some real estate, right?
Oh my God.
And congratulations on the press release.
Yeah, congrats.
We're really excited to keep following what's
happening.
Tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah, we'll have guys in the field as soon as you fellas in well, you're not in northern Quebec, but as soon as northern Quebec could dispense with a bit of snow for me, we'll have the guys in the field prospecting the lithium, and then we'll be drilling not too long after that. So
maybe even send one of our drones to film the whole thing. Who
Ah,
For
knows?
sure.
For
Awesome.
sure.
knows. Well, thanks, Nicole. We appreciate it.
All right. See you
Take
later,
care.
guys.
Bye.
Have a great one.